Right now, thousands of miles above your head, a silent war is being fought. Not with missiles or soldiers, but with spreadsheets and orbital mechanics. Investors are pouring hundreds of billions into the final frontier, chasing the promise of a trillion-dollar economy. Yet, while the headlines talk about Mars colonies and asteroid mining, a cloud of 1960s trash is about to price every private company out of the sky. We are watching the most expensive real estate in the universe turn into a high-speed minefield. This is the space gold rush, and for the first time in history, the entry fee just became impossible. But here's the part they aren't telling you in the investor decks. For decades, low Earth orbit, or LEO, was a playground for superpowers. It was about prestige, it was about the Cold War. But in the last 10 years, the script flipped. Space became a business. From Starlink's global internet to orbital manufacturing and hyperspectral imaging that can track a single shipping container across the ocean, the potential for profit is staggering. We are told we're on the verge of a new industrial revolution, but there is a physical limit to this growth that no amount of venture capital can solve. You see, space is big, but the good spots, they're vanishingly small. Think of it like Manhattan real estate. Everyone wants to be on the same block. But on this block, the buildings are moving at 17,000 miles per hour. And the previous tenants, they left their trash everywhere. But here is where it gets worse. In most industries, if you make a mess, you pay a fine. In space, a mess doesn't just sit there, it multiplies. This brings us to the story of the Great Orbital Land Grab. In the early 2000s, there were fewer than 1,000 active satellites. Today, there are over 9,000, with plans for another 100,000 in the next decade. SpaceX, Amazon, OneWeb, they are all racing to occupy the same narrow bands of altitude. Why? Because these orbits allow for the lowest latency and the highest resolution. It's the ultimate high-frequency trading floor. But as the number of players grows, so does the risk. We aren't just talking about functioning satellites. We're talking about zombie satellites. Dead hulks of metal from the 70s and 80s, leaking coolant, dropping bolts, and drifting aimlessly. They are ticking time bombs, and nobody is responsible for cleaning them up. Now this is the part nobody talks about, the physics of destruction. At orbital speeds, a piece of debris the size of a marble has the kinetic energy of a hand grenade. A fleck of paint can crack a reinforced window on the International Space Station. Now imagine what happens when two school bus-sized satellites collide. That happened in 2009. It created thousands of new pieces of lethal debris. Each one of those pieces is now a bullet, waiting to create more bullets. This is the Kessler syndrome, a theoretical tipping point where the density of objects in orbit is high enough that each collision creates a chain reaction. Eventually, the entire shell of the Earth becomes an impenetrable cage of flying shrapnel. But wait, surely we can just track the debris and move out of the way, right? Wrong. This is the escalation. While we can track things larger than a softball, there are estimated to be over 1 million pieces of debris smaller than a centimeter. They are invisible to radar, they are untrackable, and they are everywhere. For a private company like SpaceX, every launch is now a game of Russian roulette. But it's not just the physical risk that's the problem, it's the economics. This is the part where the gold rush hits a brick wall. The entry fee for space isn't just the rocket anymore, it's the insurance. 10 years ago, insuring a satellite was a standard cost of doing business. Today, as the risk of debris strikes climbs, insurance premiums are skyrocketing. Some orbits are becoming uninsurable. If you can't get insurance, you can't get a bank loan. If you can't get a loan, you don't launch. But here is the twist. You might think the big players like Elon Musk are worried about this, but in a twisted way, the Kessler syndrome actually helps them. Think about it. If the risk of debris makes it impossible for new, smaller companies to enter the market, who wins? The companies that already have their constellations in place. The entry fee isn't just about money, it's about timing. By filling the sky with thousands of satellites now, the giants are effectively pulling up the ladder behind them. They are creating a de facto monopoly by making the environment too dangerous for anyone else to join. But there's a catch, a massive one. Even the giants aren't safe from the math of the universe. If a chain reaction starts, it won't care who owns the satellites. It will wipe out the billion-dollar GPS networks we use for navigation. It will kill the weather satellites we use to predict hurricanes. It will even take down the synchronized clocks that run the global banking system. We would be pushed back to 1950 in a matter of weeks. Now, this changes everything. We are seeing the birth of a new kind of geopolitics, orbital sovereignty. Countries like China and Russia have already tested anti-satellite missiles, intentionally creating massive debris clouds as a show of force. They are essentially saying, if we can't own this space, nobody can. It's the ultimate scorched earth policy, applied to the stars. So, what is the insight here? Is the dream of a spacefaring civilization dead? Not necessarily, but the era of the Wild West in orbit is over. To survive, the space industry is going to have to do something it hates, pay for its past. We are seeing the rise of a cleaning economy. Companies are now developing technology to harpoon dead satellites, net them, or even blast them with lasers to push them back into the atmosphere to burn up. But here's the kicker. Who pays for it? Does SpaceX pay to remove a Soviet rocket body from 1972? Does the taxpayer pay to protect a private company's profits? The impossible entry fee isn't just a financial number. It is the cost of cleaning up 70 years of human negligence. Every time a new startup wants to launch a weather satellite or a research probe, they are being asked to solve a problem they didn't create. The real estate is free, but the security and maintenance costs more than the land itself. We are at a crossroads. We can either treat the orbital environment as a shared resource that requires active protection, or we can continue this frantic, unregulated race until the sky closes for good. The next time you look up at the night sky and see a tiny dot of light moving steadily across the stars, don't just think of it as a feat of engineering. Think of it as a gambler's bet. Because right now, we are playing a high-stakes game against the laws of probability. We spent centuries dreaming of leaving this planet. It would be a cruel irony if, just as we finally mastered the technology to do it, we built ourselves a cage we can never break out of. The space gold rush is real, but the window to join it is closing. And once it shuts, it might not open again for 1,000 years.